Hello and welcome. I call to order this April 21st, 2021 meeting of the Needham Finance Committee. As an initial matter, permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Josh Levy.
Here.
Barry Kaufman.
Here.
John Conley.
Here.
Tom Jacob.
Here.
Rick Lunetta.
Here.
Dick Riley.
Here.
Jim Healy. And Jim Healy.
He's muted. Here.
And Louise Miller will be late. And staff member Louise Misgard.
Here.
Good evening. This open meeting of the Needham Finance Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate transmission of the virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public may follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law, except for the agenda item entitled Citizen Request to Address the Finance Committee. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the Needham Finance Committee is convening via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Also be aware that others may be able to see you, so take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body will be available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, just remember that I'm going to introduce each speaker on the agenda. When they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each to comment. And finally, each vote in the meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So the first order of business for this meeting is citizen request to address the Finance Committee.
Madam Chair, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, very good. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 14th, 2021. However, I know we all received those minutes kind of late in the afternoon, so we might not be able to approve them at this. Did everybody have a chance to look at them?
Madam Chair, could I suggest that we probably haven't had opportunity, but recommend that people, if they have comments, forward them in to Ms. Misgard, and who can then post a draft minutes reflecting those comments so that townspeople can read them in advance of the special town meeting.
Thank you, Dick. Do we need a motion for that, or?
No, I think that'll be fine. If people want to just get me their, edits, maybe in the next like 3 or 4 days.
Yep, that would be great. I really haven't had an opportunity to go through them.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So now we're turning to some articles that we've not voted on and some that we will reopen. So the first article is Article 1, Collective Bargaining, Independent Town Workers Association. Dave.
Madam Chair, I can report that the ITWA union did vote to accept the agreement, It is consistent with that which was discussed in executive session with the Finance Committee, but the Select Board has not yet had an opportunity to vote on ratification, where the union just voted acceptance yesterday, and the Select Board's next meeting is on Tuesday.
Okay. So,
Madam Chair, question?
Rick,
If they're not going to vote on that until next Tuesday, then there won't be an opportunity to upload that into the town's website for town meeting members to see it till a couple days before town meeting. Is that going to be all right?
My understanding is that the Select Board's voted actions on the other contracts will be uploaded. And once the board takes the action on this contract, which we anticipate will be favorable, they will provide an update to Article 1 for
Okay.
town meeting members to view.
Gotcha. Madam Chair, then can I ask either Dave to go through Louise, and when they do vote and they approve on the term and the compensation classification and the amount of money that's attached to that acceptance of that, just to send it on to me and I'll quickly upload to the town web. Because Articles 2, Articles 4 and 5 are done. They go up tomorrow morning, but I'll wait until Select Board does their Article 1 and then I'll upload mine.
okay. Jim, did you have your hand up?
I don't think we should be voting anything until the Board of Selectmen vote in the affirmative. I'm not against any of this, but there's a policy and a procedure that works, and that's what the procedure is.
I didn't anticipate us voting this evening on that article anyway.
No, I got it, Rick. I'm just giving my thoughts. That's all.
So then would we then have another meeting next week to vote on this article?
Madam Chair, I suggest that we hold this and convene a session right before the start of the actual special town meeting and vote at that point. Although I'm not opposed to a Zoom meeting a
Mhm.
week from today either.
John, you have?
I agree with Dick that we can do something 15 minutes before town meeting on May 1st.
Just one question, Madam Chair, if we do that, and I understand the wisdom to that, then town meeting will not have the advantage of reflecting on this article prior to town meeting, because they'll learn about our adoption, our recommendation of adoption at the town meeting. So that may not, I just offer that as a thought.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Not that the world is going to fall apart because Article 1 isn't described in its entirety, but we need to figure this out, I think.
That's how it works. That's how it works. I understand that there's a difficulty, but that's how it works.
Well, these aren't normal times, Jim. And so we probably need to figure out a way how to give town meeting an opportunity to
Well,
understand what's in Article 1. And also in fairness to the employees.
Well, I'm not prepared to vote in favor of something that the Board of Selectmen hasn't voted in favor.
No, I'm not suggesting that we are, Jim. I'm suggesting that if we wait to 15 minutes before town meeting, that might not be appropriate either.
So it
So you-
sounds to me as though we might have to have the briefest of meetings next week to consider this article. Because to me, that would be the only fair. The select board is meeting on the 27th, right? Jim, you're shaking your head.
The Finance Committee has met before town meeting for the last 30, 40 years. I don't understand, why is this now a new phenomenon?
Because we're not making a presentation to town meeting about how we voted. Because all the presentations are electronic and uploaded. Tom?
Well, is it possible in this unusual circumstance that Rick would make his presentation at town meeting if there's a question on this particular item? Just like we have in the past. I mean, I know that's, we're trying to avoid that, but I don't think it's avoidable in this situation because of the time. Normally they don't hear our position until town meeting anyway. either with the green sheet and then the presentation, so.
Dick?
Isn't it a lot easier to have a 5-minute meeting a week from today, hold our vote, and then everything gets posted? I think that avoids all the problems that people have been raising.
I agree with you, and these aren't normal times, and in fairness to the town meeting members, my personal opinion is that that is what we should do.
Well, I suggest we hold a meeting, and as long as we get a quorum, we can take action.
Fine with that.
You're fine with that, Tom?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm fine with either way.
all right. So are most of you available next week at 7? John,
I will not be.
you will not be.
But
Gary, you-
don't go without me. I do want to share my frustration. And I think with Jim, that we've been meeting every Wednesday night now for the since January, and we've been doing our business dutifully. And having to wait at the midnight hour for some other group who's waited after the deadline to post things. I'm not quite sure that that's a requirement that we need to make. I understand the sentiment of our committee to do so, but I'm frustrated that we were put in this position.
Well, then the only other option really is to have Rick make a presentation on this one.
I'm not saying that. I'm not asking for that. I just wanted to voice my frustration.
I think Dick's suggestion makes a lot of sense, because I suspect the town moderator probably won't go for this last minute change of logistics. So
Mhm.
hold a meeting for 5 minutes, just say yay, and we'll move forward.
Fine.
Or nay, whatever.
We will do that. Hopefully we will get a quorum. And that's fine. So the next article is
One quick question. Procedurally, just if we will traditionally never vote on any article unless the select board has previously voted. Is that how we've always operated?
I don't really think that's true.
Well, I don't understand. So,
John,
Go ahead.
On collective bargaining matters, absolutely.
okay.
yeah.
I think
Jim,
we usually want the proponent to have made a position known before we take a vote.
Okay. Fair enough.
They are making the affirmative motion. And but for that motion, we wouldn't even vote to recommend. So, yes. And frankly, with most of the warrant articles, most of them are presented by the Board of Selectmen. Most of them, if not 85, 90% of them. So our position is meaningless until we know what the position of the presenter is. But anyway.
all right. So again, we will convene next week very briefly and take a vote on Article 1. So,
I would say, Carol,
yes.
that if we were to start voting affirmatively for some, motions or actions, we might displace the Board of Selectmen. So I don't know if that's where we want to go, but it was a joke.
Very funny. Okay, moving to Article 13, Public Health Consulting Assistance.
Madam
So,
Chair, I propose that we formally revote Article 13.
Madam
Josh?
Chair. Oh, so I think we should wait until Louise is here. I think last week we agreed we'd only do it if everyone was present.
Is she coming to this meeting?
She told me she would be late, but she did say she had another meeting at 7 o'clock.
I want to push this one to the end, and
all right, we'll push it to the end.
if
and
she's
then
not, we can just guide them.
see what happens. Article 24, Emery Grover renovation and design. So the chairs met last week and agreed to defer Emery Grover and work as a financing committee with representatives from the select board, the school committee, the finance committee, Dan and Kate, to come up with a financing plan for Emery Grover, specifically once we've received the comprehensive financing plan for the renovation of Mitchell, Pollard, and Emery Grover. And without that information, we could not go forward and make a decision on Emery Grover. So Dan Gutenkans is asking the CPC to hold their application and defer any decision on that. And he anticipates that the select board and the select board will hold the article. And so therefore, we don't need to take a position on this article because it will ultimately be pulled from the warrant. So that's my update.
I agree.
Josh, did I leave anything out?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. So questions? Comments? All right. Moving on. General fund cash capital. So we voted on this one, but removed Ridge Hill and removed the Pollard feasibility study. So it sounds like that the Pollard feasibility study will be removed by the school committee and the select board. And Ridge Hill is being deferred, and Kate has asked that we try to put together, again, a task force to discuss what we can do with what we can do basically to demolish Ridge Hill and why it's so expensive, and take that up again in the fall. So that will not be part of this cash capital article.
Fine, Madam Chair, I would be glad to volunteer on behalf of the Finance Committee to work on that.
That would be awesome. Thank you, Dick. Josh?
I was just going to say, I hope that that task force discusses future plans for that site as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, yeah, that will be part of it. I really think that their plan was no plan. You know, I really think their future plan was grass, but but that will be,
If they'll accept a second member on that committee, I'd love to work alongside with Dick on that.
You need a place for the Exchange Club storage, don't you?
No, it has nothing to do with Exchange Club. It has everything to do with the utilization of that facility.
No, that's great. That's great. I'll give both of your names to Kate because she.
Madam Chair, do I understand then that the Board of Selectmen, as the proponents of the cash capital article, will vote to it, will propose an amendment at the outset?
I believe so. Dave, is that your understanding? Dave?
That's my understanding, is the select board will vote to offer a motion to amend. That is what the Finance Committee was recommending.
Okay, Louise.
Because they actually voted this article. They voted this article in the affirmative.
That is correct. So they'll do a reconsideration for a motion to amend.
Okay.
Louise and I had worked up alternative exhibits for that, so we can ditch the alternatives.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept and adopt the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen amended to eliminate the two projects, Ridge Hill and Pollard.
Second.
So in this case, we don't have a motion to amend yet from the select board. As long as we're meeting next week, should we consider
I
that?
thought I just thought I heard they voted in favor of that.
No. I'm sorry. I confused that point, Jim. They voted affirmatively on Ridge Hill, on operating cash capital, and Ridge Hill was one of them. So they have not voted on the motion to amend.
Well, then I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I would hope so, Jim.
So, Josh, I'm sorry. Your comment was, should we vote this next week?
Yeah, if we need to take a position on any amendment.
Okay, if they put forth a motion to amend, we can look at that. Public safety building construction. John, do you want to take that one?
Carol, I think Louise, did you have something?
I was just going to say that what was voted last week by the Finance Committee was equivalent to the amended
Right.
article, so I'm not sure that it would be either way. Maybe we should vote the amendment just to be sure. Seems redundant, but maybe.
Yeah, I think what we voted last week was to propose an amendment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I agree. We need to find out what the selectmen's position is.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. And now turning to Article 37. John, do you want to report on that?
Sure. So as people recall, Article 37, we've had some previous discussions on, and then at our past meetings, and then had a further discussion about it last week. And we went forward and voted on a recommendation to support the article, but in an amended amount of $1 million, as opposed to the 1.7 million that's set forth in the warrant. I participated in the meeting that Carol referenced that took place last Thursday afternoon. And then Carol and Josh were on it, as was I. And there were members from the school committee and the PPVC and the select board. And there were lots of things that were discussed. Some of the ones that we've gone over already, which talked about withdrawing Emery Grover and the two amendments on the cash capital articles to take out the Pollard feasibility study and the in Ridge Hill. And then we came to this warrant article. And once again, there was a robust discussion and explanation from Stuart Chandler on behalf of the PBVC that they had moved to amend their own request to reduce it to 1.4 million. But they felt quite strongly that 1.4 was the correct amount that was needed to finish this project. Having heard the points that we raised, the select board weighed in and were in favor of that amount at 1.4 million as well. And again, I think our position at the 1 million is a position that's very supportable in light of where we are in the project and the other pressures that we have on the town for borrowing and future borrowing. However, in light of sort of the actions on the other matters, which I think people heard our positions and acted accordingly, I called Carol subsequent to the meeting last week and said, you know, I'm not going to stand in the, you know, I don't think it's necessarily that we have to create a fight over between 1 million and 1.4 million. We know that they're not going to spend money that they're not required to spend and don't have to spend. And to eliminate the possibility of anyone having to come back for ask for more money on it, I thought that in light of where we are on everything sort of globally, that supporting an amended request of 1.4 would be something that I, at least as one member of the Finance Committee, despite my strong feelings on this, as you know, would be willing to support.
I vote to recommend the adoption of this article at the amended amount of 1.4 million.
Second.
Do we need to do anything else, Dave? Or procedurally?
Madam Chair, I think procedurally it would be appropriate for the committee to do reconsideration and then offer, if reconsideration passes, then offer a new motion.
I move that there be reconsideration of the motion to accept this article at 1 million. That would be the motion for reconsideration.
Second that motion.
Great. Let's take a voice vote. Rick,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and myself, the chair votes yes.
Now I make a motion to accept the amended recommendation at $1.4 million for this particular article.
Second.
Okay, let's take another voice vote. Rick,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and myself, the chair votes yes. So that brings us back to reconsideration of Article 13. And Louise isn't here.
No. And I was going to say before with the construction funding, I know Louise was here for the last vote and not here for that. I think that wasn't as big of a deal because I think there wasn't as much disagreement. But I think with the Health and Human Services funding, that does hinge on one vote. So I think we should probably defer that until next week if everyone is still here. Oh, but John won't be here.
Barry won't.
Barry,
Yeah.
No, I'm not here either.
And we just can't ask the incremental, we know what everybody else's votes are. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. Is that possible? Everybody else voted. We just need Barry's vote.
well, I think if we reconsider, technically we'd all have to revote, but we would, in the back of our minds, we know what, we can presume how Louise Miller would vote if she were here.
Yeah.
But we can't vote in her absence.
No.
We can't vote for her, but we can hold a vote in her absence.
Right.
So
If it were 5-3, either way, that would be dispositive.
I would feel more comfortable going with the original vote. I think it was 4-4. Is it possible to, I think last time we had a tie vote, what was printed was no position rather than for or against.
But we can't take a position on the merits either.
Yeah. In thinking this through, correct me if I'm wrong, when we made the comparison with the planning board wished the funds for projects in which they had in mind, which I think we all felt really made no sense given the context of what this article was supposed to do. As I look at the health department, they have no idea of what the future is going to bring. They have no plans whatsoever. And so in essence, as I begin to think this through, the comparison between the two limped greatly. And it just fortified my position in terms of the affirmative, because the comparison between the planning board and this is so, at least in my opinion, so demonstrably different.
Well, actually, I have the exact opposite view, Rick, and I think it's having
Why am I surprised?
whatsoever for something is not something I can support. And we have the reserve fund for specifically if someone has an identified need that was not contemplated at the time that the budget for that department was set forth, there is a process and an avenue to come and request those funds. And I think our track record on supporting those matters when they come forward is speaks for itself and is quite high. So I can't vote for something unspecified, but I would love to vote as on the Finance Committee on a reserve fund request for a specified request for a health matter. As people say, we don't know what it is today, but they might know what it is tomorrow.
My thought there, John, is that I may be looking at this incorrectly. I'm not so sure if they bring a situation before us, a health matter, that really any of us are qualified to say yay or nay. They may make a good they may make a good position statement, but I would not feel comfortable saying yay or nay to a health matter for which I really have no expertise. And so, in my position is that they have this money and they go ahead in terms of their subject matter expertness and spend it wisely. I'm not so sure I don't know what I would do, frankly, in all honesty, if they came looking for money and they give me a position. I don't know how I would evaluate the efficacy of that request. So that's my only thought here. That gives me a little bit of pause. So I'm not clairvoyant, just as you're not, and so I'm not sure what would happen in the future. But I do know is that I'm not qualified to make decisions relative to health. I'm just a human resource hack, and so I don't know where to go with that.
Thank you, Rick. Jim?
Dick and I debated this last week, and I respect his views. And but I don't agree with that, Rick. I just don't. I think we are confronted, whether it's a regular warrant article, whether it's a request for a reserve fund transfer, we're confronted all the time with matters that we have no idea what's going on. We have no idea. And we rely on the professionals and the experts to give us the information that we need to be able to make an affirmative vote, whether it's for or against. So I don't agree with that notion. And I would say that, as John just said, that when we are confronted with a situation where we don't have that subject matter expertise, my guess is that the Finance Committee has always gone in favor of the department. They've always said, this is something that you're telling us that we need to do. And we don't know whether we should or should not do it, but you're telling us, and therefore we're going to agree with you. And in the days that I was doing this back in the day, that's what I would say. I said, listen, I don't know your business, but I think if you're making this request in good faith, and if you're telling us that there's a problem that needs to be addressed, then we're going to support you to address it. I think, again, I come late to this whole discussion. I've only been here for 3.5 months. So I am so far off the radar compared to you guys. But it seems to me that we need to have this sense of we can respect what these other departments do. We can understand them. And if they come to us with requests that we think need to be appropriately accepted or denied, we should give them the good faith. We should give them the credit of good faith. And I have no reason to believe that the Finance Committee wouldn't do that. What I worry about is if you don't have any checks and balances, if it's simply something that's set aside into either some sort of a finance reserve article, or if it's even within their operating budget, there's no checks and balances. What I worry about is that then the town meeting and the taxpayers, they lose the ability to say to them, oh, well, wait a minute, I don't know about that. I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. So that's right. I don't think we're ever going to deny the Board of Health coming to us and saying, we need to do X, Y, and Z. But according to the presentation, they don't have definitive information on what X, Y, and Z is. And if they don't, I'm not sure why we should, be putting money aside for them to make their own decision, unilateral decision about how taxpayers' money should be spent.
Thank you, Jim. Dick?
I was going to keep quiet, but impossible. I think, to be very brief, I think Louise's position, and I sort of hate to say it, well, she's not here, but I think she was internally inconsistent. As I recall, initially she said, I have no problem with this if it were in the operating budget, but it's not, and so I think it should go into the reserve fund. Well, it seems to me that if it were in the operating budget, we wouldn't be passing judgment on whether a specific use of that portion of their budget was legitimate or not. We would concede their expertise on that. Here, what I think is they've taken the responsible position and said, look, we don't know in any given year how much of this allocation we may need. So rather than asking for an allocation in a given year, which we may or may not use, we are coming to you and requesting a financial warrant article, which gives us a period of time to draw that down. But the same consistency that said if that were in their operating budget, they should have authority to do so, seems to me to support the proposition that if it's in a financial warrant article, that's appropriate. End of my presentation.
So, Jim,
I would say to that, not that I want to do another Dick Riley debate, but I would say that if that was the case, we would look at what was in that operating budget item, whether it was I don't know the initials, DSR 324, I'm not sure what it is, but I think we would look at that. We would look to see whether or not that was an appropriate expenditure of funds. The second thing I would say is that I don't think as a finance committee, we have never said that we will not allow for the expenditure of funds that needed to be for critical, emergency, health-related items. We've never stood for that proposition. So what is the harm with having them then come to the finance committee to say, unbeknownst to us, unexpected, and if it was expected, we would have budgeted for it, but unbeknownst and unexpected, we have this. And then the finance committee then says, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, the back and forth, if I may, Madam Chair.
yes, Dick.
2 points. It seems to be implicit in the suggestion that this be reserved for reserve fund action. Implicit in that is that does give a veto power to the finance committee. And secondly, on the grounds of monitoring and regulating, looking at outside expense, we have never, to the legal department, when Dave Tobin was running it, we have never said, you do not have authority to go outside without running it by the board. And frankly, this board probably has more expertise on the necessity for outside legal advice than we do with respect to outside analysis of public health issues.
Josh,
So I other than Barry, because I guess we don't know his vote, I think I was the only person who voted differently on the planning and the health consulting. And I just want to make it clear that the comparison that I made was just that it's a similar use of funds in that they're kind of discretionary funds to be used for needed purposes. The reason why I voted differently is because I think the planning funds, which I supported in May or June of last year, were expended in a way that were different than how they were described when they were initially appropriated. And so I think I said to the Director of Health and Human Services the same thing. If that so happens to be the same thing, if they end up being expended more frequently, then we can revisit that in the future, and maybe a financial warrant article isn't appropriate. But I just hope that we give some amount of deference and that we trust the department managers to some extent to run the department in a way that they think is appropriate. I don't think we can have every single line item scrutinized by the finance committee, or else I think the town would grind to a halt.
Barry,
Everybody seems to, I've read everybody's comments and obviously listened, and I think both arguments are good arguments. I guess the question for me, and actually to Josh's point, is the level of scrutiny we want to have for some discretionary funds to be used to hire outside counsel when needed, when they don't have the in-house expertise. And because it's not predictable, it doesn't make sense to be in the operating budget. We had that discussion back then, which is why we asked them to present it in this way. And personally, I think it is I'm willing to give that department, I guess, the benefit of the doubt and how that will get spent, and it will get spent in a judicious and necessary fashion based on how they've described it to us. I don't think I don't view the need for this, potential need for this to be an emergency type of issue that I think, we expect for the reserve funds. And I realize not every reserve fund request is an emergency, but it is clearly unexpected. But they anticipate the need to hire outside experts. They just can't predict the timing as I understand it. And for that reason, I would be in favor of this article.
Madam Chair, I recommend that the Finance Committee reconsider its vote on Article 13 that it took at last week's meeting.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's take a voice vote. Rick? This is for the motion to reconsider.
You're muted. And Rick?
Rick?
They're doing dishes behind me. I'm sorry, that's yes.
Okay, thank you. Dick?
Yes.
Jim?
I think it's regrettable that you're doing this without a member present, but so I will say no.
Barry?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Josh?
No, because I think we do need to have everyone present.
And what happened to John?
He thought he
He
was
went to go find Louise.
He thought he was on Tucker Carlson and got cut off.
And myself, I'm going to vote yes. But we're in the midst of a vote and John is nowhere to be found.
That's funny.
That's out of the Mitch McConnell school.
I was going to say Billy Bulger, but
You're dating yourself.
yeah. Well, I'm the old guy, remember.
The number of times you said you're the new guy here is outlasted the number of years you're actually in.
Depends on the argument.
Yeah.
So what should we do?
I call John on the phone. See where he is.
1, 2, 3, 4. There were 5 votes in the affirmative, right?
Yes.
Yeah. 5-2.
With the
This
quorum,
is just a motion to reconsider.
yeah, with the motion, I would submit that there's been a vote taken.
So 5-4 would still be a vote in the affirmative. So
Yeah.
I think Dick's
agree
right.
with you, yeah.
Okay,
We vote all the time with the quorum that we have. That's what a quorum is for.
but now we need a motion
Madam
to,
Chair, I recommend that the Finance Committee recommend adoption of Article 13, Public Health Consulting Assistance.
I'll second it.
okay, so Rick,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Jim,
No.
Tom,
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
John is not here, Louise is not here, and I vote no. So,
So it was 5-2.
5-2. In favor.
Okay.
So
so
in my presentation, do I have to mention we took 3 votes on this one? Just the last vote count.
Who's got the presentation? You, Tom?
third one's the charm, right?
I think brevity is to be admired in your presentation.
Okay, so then what we are reconsidering next week is collective bargaining. And that is it, correct? Because, or do we, Louise?
The cash capital article as the amendment to the cash capital article.
That's right.
Wait, for the amendment to that.
Which we already vote, but we did already vote in that same manner. I mean, our vote reflects what the amendment will be.
Yeah, but I don't think we can presume, can we? Jim's point, I think, is valid, that see, we don't disagree all the time, Jim, but I think that we ought to wait for the
I just checked my watch. That's the first time in a long time.
I think we ought to wait for the finance, since we're going to meet anyhow, wait for the select board to take action and then vote affirmatively, or however we
Okay.
choose to vote on their amendment.
That's fine.
Yeah, we don't really actually know what their amendment's going to be yet, so we're just assuming.
Okay,
Plus, they'll give us more to do next week.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
do I have a second?
Jim and
Great.
Dick are
Let's
agreeing.
We're on a roll, Jim.
Let's take a vote. Rick,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Jim,
For my fellow churchmate, I agree.
Barry,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
John, we're voting to adjourn.
Yes, sorry, my Surface went into an update that they didn't tell me about.
All right, so until next week.
But John, just so you know, we voted